Josephine Baker, the star who became a spy. November 30, 2021. Paris, France. Darkness falls on the Rue Soufflot. A red carpet stretches 4 city blocks through the Latin Quarter. Thousands line the cobblestone streets. Their faces glow blue in the twilight, illuminated by phone screens held high. 6 French Air Force officers emerge from the shadows. They carry a coffin draped in the tricolor flag. Military medals rest on top, catching the last light of day. The coffin moves slowly toward the Pantheon. Inside, there is no body, only soil. Dirt from Missouri, earth from Monaco, dust from a French chateau, sand from the streets of Paris. The coffin contains samples of soil from 4 places that meant the most to her. St. Louis, Missouri, her birthplace, Les Milandes, France, Monaco, and Paris. The crowd falls silent as projections dance across the monument's massive facade. A woman appears. She's wearing sequins and feathers, frozen mid-dance, her smile brilliant against stone. Josephine Baker is entering the Pantheon, the first black woman, the first American, the first performer. But this ceremony isn't just about what she was, it's about what she did when the world wasn't watching. What she risked when fame couldn't protect her. What she became when Europe descended into darkness. This is the story of how an entertainer became an agent, how spotlights became cover, how a woman who made the world dance helped save it from tyranny. June 3rd, 1906, St. Louis, Missouri. Frida Josephine McDonald enters the world in a slum. No father, a mother who works herself raw washing other people's clothes, a neighborhood of rooming houses and desperation. She grew up in a low-income neighborhood mostly composed of rooming houses, brothels and apartments without indoor plumbing. At 8 years old, Josephine is hired out to white families. Her small hands scrub floors, wash dishes, do laundry. Her hands were scalded as punishment for using too much soap for the laundry. The pain teaches her something essential. America has no place for her. In 1917, when Josephine is 11, she stands on the west bank of the Mississippi River. Across the water, East St. Louis burns. Race riots consume entire neighborhoods, the glow of the burning of Negro homes lighting the sky. Children huddle together, bewildered, watching their world become ash. The image sears itself into her memory. Fire, hatred, fear. She vows to escape. Dancing becomes her way out. At 13, she marries for the first time. The marriage crumbles within a year. At 15, she marries again. A man named William Howard Baker. His last name is the only thing she keeps. By 19, she's in New York. Harlem pulses with music, opportunity, the electric promise of the Renaissance. She dances in Broadway revues. Shuffle along. Chocolate dandies. Her comic timing gets laughs. Her energy electrifies crowds. But even here, even in Harlem, she knows. America will only let her rise so far. Then comes the offer that changes everything. October 1925. The SS Berengaria, Atlantic Ocean. Josephine boards a ship bound for Paris with an all-black revue called La Revue Nègre. When Josephine and her castmates boarded a train in France, they were surprised but happy to learn they could sit anywhere they liked. She doesn't speak French. She's barely literate. She's terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. The ship cuts through dark water toward a continent at war with itself. October 2nd, 1925. Théâtre des Champs-Élysées. The curtain rises. Josephine explodes onto the Parisian stage wearing almost nothing, a costume of feathers, beads, raw sexuality, and explosive joy. She dances the Charleston with such abandon that the audience collectively gasps. Paris has never seen anything like her. Within months, she's the most famous woman in France. Josephine Baker starred on the stages of Paris's most important music halls. The Folies Bergère the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées, the Casino de Paris. At the Folies Bergère, she performs wearing her now iconic costume, a skirt made of artificial bananas, a beaded necklace, nothing else. The image becomes synonymous with the jazz age itself. Artists paint her. Picasso sketches her profile. Ernest Hemingway watches from the audience, entranced. She walks her pet cheetah through Montparnasse on a diamond-studded leash. She's more than a star, she's a phenomenon. But Europe's adoration comes with a price. In 1928, she tours to Vienna. Posters around the city denigrated her performance, calling her a black devil. Protesters line the streets as her carriage passes. The scene reminds her of St. Louis, of fire, of hatred barely contained. Adolf Hitler's autobiography, Mein Kampf, spreads through Europe like contagion. The ideology within it despises everything Josephine represents. Still, she persists. She learns French, she makes films, she becomes fluent in the language of her adopted home. In 1936, she earns her pilot's license, one of the few black women in the world to do so. November 30, 1937. France. In 1937, she married the first of 3 French husbands and became a French citizen. His name is Jean Léon. He's Jewish, a sugar broker. Their marriage won't last, but the citizenship will. That same year, she falls in love with a chateau in southwestern France. The Château de Médaille sits on a hill overlooking the Dordogne River. Gothic façade, stained glass windows, gargoyles. It's easy to understand why Josephine fell in love with Château de Médaille, calling it her Sleeping Beauty Castle. She rents it. Then, years later, she'll buy it. It will become her sanctuary, her fortress, her center of operations for a war she doesn't yet know she'll fight. France has given Josephine everything America denied her: freedom, acceptance, a stage large enough for her enormous talent. She loves this country with the fervor of the converted. She has no idea how soon that love will be tested. September 1st, 1939, German tanks roll into Poland. 2 days later, France declares war on Nazi Germany. Josephine doesn't hesitate. Inspired by the love for her new country and antipathy for Germany's racist Nazi regime, Josephine sang and danced to raise money for the French army. She performs at fundraisers, entertains troops on the Maginot Line, sings for soldiers who will soon face unimaginable horror. She's 33 years old, at the peak of her fame. She could flee to safety, to America, to anywhere. She has the money, the connections, the means. She stays. June 1940. Paris falls. The German army enters Paris. Swastikas hang from the Arc de Triomphe. Jackboots echo on boulevards where Josephine once danced. The occupation begins. Brutal, methodical, total. Josephine retreats to her chateau. Les Milandes becomes more than a home. It becomes a hiding place. She would shelter resistance fighters and Jewish refugees, providing them with documents and even money for food, clothes, and forged documents she usually financed herself. Belgian refugees arrive in the night. Resistance fighters use her guest rooms. Weapons fill the cellar. A radio transmitter hides in an outbuilding, maintaining contact with Allied forces. The Nazis know who she is. They've seen her films, heard her music. They approach the chateau one day, suspicious that she's stockpiling weapons. Josephine greets them with champagne and charm. She smiles, laughs, signs autographs. The officers are starstruck. Baker managed to charm the officers into leaving her chateau without searching it. They leave without searching a single room. It's the first time Josephine realizes her fame can be a weapon. September 1940. A secret meeting. A man named Jacques Abté requests a meeting. He's head of French military counterintelligence, an operative for the French resistance. He's spent weeks recruiting spies, Men who can travel unnoticed, who blend into shadows. Josephine Baker is the opposite of invisible. She's the most recognizable woman in France. That's exactly why Abte wants her. They meet in secret. He explains what he needs. Intelligence on Axis troop movements, information from diplomatic sources. Someone who can travel freely, who has access to parties and galas where secrets slip out over cocktails. Someone no one would ever suspect. Josephine doesn't need time to consider. France made me what I am, she told Abte. The Parisians gave me their hearts, and I am ready to give them my life. She raises her glass of champagne. To France, October 1940. The spy goes to work. Josephine's first assignment seems simple. Attend parties at the Italian and Japanese embassies. Listen, remember, report back. She wears sequined gowns and million-dollar smiles. Diplomats flock to her. They want photographs, autographs, stories about Hollywood and Broadway. Diplomats would speak to her because they were so starstruck, and she could collect this information and pass it on to people for whom it would be useful. She asks innocent questions, flirts harmlessly, listens carefully. Then she excuses herself to the powder room. In bathroom stalls at embassy parties, Josephine scribbles notes on whatever she can find. The secret agent made detailed notes and attached them to her bra with a safety pin. Later, she transcribes the intelligence in invisible ink onto her sheet music. The same music sheets she'll carry openly through customs, through checkpoints, past German soldiers who ask for autographs instead of searching her luggage. She transported the confidential information by writing with invisible ink on music sheets. Who would dare search Josephine Baker? She writes later. When they asked me for papers, they generally meant autographs. Her first mission, determine if Italian dictator Benito Mussolini will ally with Hitler. She uses her connections to Italian diplomats, people she's entertained and befriended over years of touring. The answer comes back. Yes, Italy will join the Axis. Her second mission, confirm Japan's intentions. She's become friends with the wife of Japan's ambassador to France. Through careful conversation, she extracts confirmation. Japan will join Germany. The intelligence Josephine gathers helps Allied forces understand the shape of the war to come, the enemies they'll face, the timeline of catastrophe. October 1940. Escape from France. The Nazis tighten their grip on Paris. Josephine's anti-fascist views are known. Her marriage to a Jewish man is documented. Her refuge of Jewish families and resistance fighters will eventually be discovered. She can no longer hide in plain sight. Jacques Abte hatches a plan. Josephine will leave France under the pretense of a European tour. He'll pose as her secretary, a valet named Hébert, who carries her bags and arranges her hotels. They travel through Spain to Portugal. In Portugal and Spain, Baker continued to harvest details about Axis troop movements at embassy parties. At every stop, parties, galas, diplomatic receptions. Josephine performs, charms, extracts information. In bathrooms and dressing rooms, she writes it all down. The documents she smuggles are pinned inside her undergarments. Squirreling away in bathrooms, the secret agent made detailed notes and attached them to her bra with a safety pin. Photographs of German troop positions, details about airfields and harbors, intelligence about fortifications on France's western coast. She carries it all across borders, past checkpoints, through enemy territory. Guards wave her through with smiles and requests for photograph. January 1941. Morocco. Ordered to Morocco in January 1941 to set up a liaison and transmission center in Casablanca. Abte and Baker sailed across the Mediterranean Sea. North Africa becomes their new base of operations. Josephine rents a home in Marrakesh. The plan is to continue gathering intelligence, to use Morocco as a staging ground for espionage across the Mediterranean. But fate intervenes. June 1941. Casablanca. In June 1941, Josephine Baker was at her home in Marrakesh when she was struck with crippling abdominal pain. The pain is sudden, excruciating. Jacques Abte borrows a station wagon so Josephine can lie down for the 350-mile journey to Casablanca on roads that barely deserve the name. At a private clinic, doctors operate immediately. Josephine was taken to the private clinic of Dr. Henri Comte, where she was operated on to drain an abscess in her abdomen. The surgery reveals something worse: an infection, complications from a miscarriage. The doctors perform an emergency hysterectomy. Then peritonitis sets in. Then sepsis. Josephine Baker, the woman who danced for crowned heads and charmed Nazi officers, lies in a hospital bed fighting for her life. Jacques Abte sleeps on a cot in her room. Captain Abte stayed with Josephine on a cot in her room. His care and devotion to her were endless. His devotion is absolute. She'll need multiple surgeries over the coming months. She jokes with doctors that they should install a zipper. The world hears rumors. Whispers that Josephine Baker is dead. December 6, 1942, New York Times. Headline: Josephine is safe. Negro dancer reported dead is living in Morocco. The rumors were wrong. Josephine is alive, and even from her hospital bed, the spy work continues. American diplomats and French resistance members convened at her bedside. They visit under the guise of checking on the beloved entertainer. In reality, they're trading intelligence, coordinating operations, planning the liberation of North Africa. From her balcony, still weak, still recovering, Josephine watches American troops arrive in Morocco as part of Operation Torch in November 1942. The tide is turning. December 1942. Return to the stage. Josephine leaves the hospital after 18 months. She's lost weight. Her face shows the toll of surgery after surgery, infection after infection. Doctors tell her to rest, to recover. Instead, she starts touring. Allied troops are stationed across North Africa. British, French, American soldiers far from home, facing an enemy that seems unstoppable. Josephine performs for them in makeshift theaters, in desert camps, under stars so bright they look painted on the sky. After she recovered, Baker maintained a relentless touring schedule entertaining Allied troops. By day, she rode in jeeps across the scorching deserts of North Africa. At night, she bundled up and slept on the ground next to her vehicle to avoid landmines. For American troops, she has one condition. When she performed for Americans, her only stipulation was that black and white GIs sit together. Integration or no performance. The military complies. In the midst of war, at the edge of the vast desert, Josephine takes a makeshift stage. The backdrop is a midnight sky painted with stars. Allied soldiers gather to watch her sing. She chooses J'ai deux amours, I have two loves. My country and Paris. A crowd of adoring Allied soldiers stationed in North Africa gathered to swoon over the world-renowned entertainer. One man in the audience, an academic named Harold Cruz, writes, "What she sings, what she says in words, expresses in movement of body, in dance motions and pantomime, constitute an art of such magnificence and individuality that it is not enough to talk about it. She must be seen. She's more than an entertainer now. She's a symbol, proof that joy survives even in darkness, that beauty persists despite horror. She tours from Algiers to Jerusalem, performs everywhere the Free French have a presence, raises money for the resistance, gathers more intelligence. She passed along all information to the Free French forces, pinning notes to her clothes and writing messages using invisible ink on her sheet music. Every performance is a cover. Every smile conceals a mission. August 1944. France is free. Allied forces land in Normandy. Paris rises against its occupiers. The liberation sweeps across France like a long-held breath finally released. October 1944. Return to Paris. After 4 years of exile, Josephine returns to the city she loves. She's dressed in her French Air Force uniform, blue with gold epaulettes. She rides in the back of a car down the Champs-Élysées. Dressed in her blue Air Auxiliary Lieutenant's uniform, punctuated with gold epaulettes, Baker rode in the back of an automobile as the throngs along the Champs-Élysées tossed her flowers. Crowds line the avenue. They throw flowers. They weep. They cheer. Josephine weeps too. France is free. The nightmare is over. But the work isn't done. 1947, Chateau de Milande. Josephine buys her chateau outright. She has plans for it, dreams bigger than any she's danced. She marries her fourth husband, Josephine, an orchestra conductor. Together, they envision Les Milandes as something revolutionary, a living demonstration that people of all races can coexist in harmony. 1954 to 1964, the experiment. Josephine begins adopting children from Korea, from Japan, Finland, Colombia, France, Ivory Coast, Venezuela, Morocco, Algeria, Peru. During her participation in the civil rights movement, Baker began to adopt children, forming a family which she often referred to as the Rainbow Tribe. 12 children in total, different ethnicities, different religions, different languages. She calls them her Rainbow Tribe. It was Josephine's hope that her Rainbow Tribe would be a symbol of a united and happy multiracial family. She transforms Les Milandes into an amusement park, a dance hall, a theater, a testament to her vision of the world as it should be. Between 1954 and 1960, 500,000 people per year visited Josephine's castle to enjoy the ballets, jazz evenings, fireworks, and dances. Tourists come by the thousands. They pay admission to walk the grounds, to see the children play, to watch this impossible family thrive. But the dream proves expensive, extravagant, unsustainable. Josephine, unable to rein in Josephine's spending, leaves for Argentina in 1961. The bills pile up, the chateau goes to auction. Brigitte Bardot organizes a fundraising campaign. It's not enough. 1968, the eviction. The chateau is sold. Josephine is given 1 year to leave. While on tour, she learns the new owner plans to evict her early. She races home and barricades herself inside her kitchen. The new owner's henchmen had no scruples and booted her out of the property. Workers lock her out when she steps outside for water. Photographs capture her on the doorstep, in shock, displaced from the home she built as a monument to love. At 62, Josephine moves to Monaco. Princess Grace of Monaco, her friend since the 1950s, offers her a house. She's lost everything except her voice. 1963, Washington, D.C. Before the eviction, before the loss of her chateau, Josephine returns to America for something more important than any performance. August 28, 1963. The March on Washington. 250,000 people gather at the Lincoln Memorial. They march for jobs, for freedom, for the end of segregation. During the March on Washington for Freedom and Jobs in Washington, Josephine stood alongside Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Josephine is one of the few women allowed to speak. She stands before the crowd in her French Air Force uniform, the uniform she wore when Paris was liberated, adorned with military medals from her service in the Resistance. She speaks about palaces and presidents, about walking into the homes of kings and queens. Then she delivers the line that defines everything she's fought for. You know, friends, that I do not lie when I tell you I have walked into the palaces of kings and queens and into the houses of presidents. But I could not walk into a hotel in America and get a cup of coffee, and that made me mad. The crowd erupts. Josephine has spent her life fighting against poverty, against racism, against fascism, against hatred in all its forms. Now, at 57, she stands as proof that the fight matters. That one person can make a difference. April 8, 1975. Bobino Theatre, Paris. Josephine is 68. She's been invited to perform at a retrospective celebrating 50 years in Paris. Princess Grace of Monaco helped organize it. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis is in the audience. The theater is sold out, every seat filled. Josephine takes the stage. She sings, she dances. The audience gives her standing ovation after standing ovation. She's still magnetic, still electric, still Josephine. April 12th, 1975. 4 days after opening night, Josephine suffers a brain hemorrhage. She dies surrounded by newspapers reviewing her comeback. The headlines praise her, say she's still got it, say she's immortal. After her death, Baker's adoptive country honored her for her wartime service once again when she became the first American-born woman to receive full French military honors at her funeral. More than 20,000 mourners attend her funeral at l'Église de la Madeleine. The French military gives her full honors. A gun salute, the flag, the works. She's buried in Monaco next to Joe Bouillon and one of her children. For nearly 50 years, she rests there. August 2021. The petition. A journalist named Laurent Kupferman launches a petition. He argues that Josephine Baker deserves France's highest honor, entrance into the Pantheon. The petition gathers nearly 38,000 signatures. The petition's almost 38,000 signatures allegedly convinced French President Emmanuel Macron to take the suggestion seriously. Josephine's family supports the campaign but refuses to move her body from Monaco. Her family did not wish her actual remains to be moved from where she was buried in Monaco. A compromise is reached, a symbolic coffin, soil from the places she loved most. November 30, 2021, Paris. And so we return to where we began. The red carpet on Rue Soufflot, the crowds in the twilight, the coffin carried by Air Force officers. Projections dance across the Pantheon's facade. Images from Josephine's life flicker in the darkness. The banana skirt, the military uniform, the rainbow tribe, the march on Washington. President Emmanuel Macron stands before the monument. Macron said Baker did not defend one skin color, but fought for the liberty of all. He addresses her directly, speaking to the woman who escaped St. Louis, who conquered Paris, who spied against the Nazis, who fought for civil rights, who dreamed of a world without hatred. You are entering this pantheon because although you were born American, there is no one more French than you. The coffin enters the monument. The doors close. Josephine Baker joins Voltaire, Victor Hugo, Marie Curie. She is the first black woman, the first American, the first performer. 9 of her children are in the audience. So is Prince Albert II of Monaco, son of Princess Grace. 9 of them attended Tuesday's ceremony among the 2,000 guests. One of her sons, Jean-Claude, says the costume she loved most to wear wasn't the dresses, it was the military uniform, and now to find herself under the French flag, it's a considerable honor. The ceremony ends with everyone singing the Marseillaise, France's national anthem, Josephine's anthem, a song about liberty, resistance, and the refusal to accept tyranny. Here's what we remember about Josephine Baker. The banana skirt, yes. The cheetah on the diamond leash. The scandalized Parisians and the wild jazz-age nights. But remember too, the invisible ink on sheet music, the intelligence pinned to undergarments, the refugees hidden in a chateau cellar, the 18 months fighting sepsis in a Moroccan hospital while still gathering information for the resistance. Remember the Allied troops watching her perform under desert stars. Remember her condition. Black and white soldiers will sit together or she won't sing. Remember a 68-year-old woman dancing at the Bobino Theatre 4 days before her death, still giving everything she had to the stage that saved her. Josephine Baker could have been safe. could have returned to America before the war, could have avoided the danger, the sacrifice, the years of exile and near death. She didn't. France made me what I am. The Parisians gave me their hearts, and I am ready to give them my life. She meant it, and when they asked for her life, she gave it, not all at once in some dramatic sacrifice, but slowly, deliberately, over years of risk and service and courage most people will never have to muster. She was born in poverty, died beloved, lived courageously. She escaped America's racism only to face down European fascism. She traded spotlights for shadows, applause for danger, comfort for conviction. She proved that fame could be weaponized for good, that a black woman from the slums of St. Louis could help save Europe, that joy and resistance aren't opposites, they're allies. The soil from 4 countries now rests in the Pantheon. Dirt from Missouri, where a girl named Frida watched neighborhoods burn and vowed to escape. Earth from France, where Josephine found freedom and fought to preserve it. Sand from Monaco, where she spent her final years surrounded by the family she built from fragments of a broken world. Dust from Paris, the city that gave her everything. The woman who danced in a banana skirt and spied on Nazis. The entertainer who became an agent. The star who used her light to guide others through darkness. Josephine Baker. Finally home.